Welcome to Cherie's World Podcast. I am Cherie Johnson. I am going to speed through this intro because I'm super excited. I want you to see the man I got here with me today. You have been asking for him for years. In fact, since I started the podcast. And thank you, SAG and After Strike, I finally got him. We got Casey Ellison in the house today. For those of you who have known me my whole life, I know that you know him.
The only podcast coming through your beat stereo is Cherie's World, so let's go around like a merry-go. Plug your phone in, make sure it got a full battery. Download it Wednesday, listen to it Saturday. She cover all topics, whatever you after. She got ball players, authors, doctors, actors, rappers, singers, entrepreneurs, divas, leaders. Androids or Apple, turn up your speakers. Trying to shoot my shot like the vaccine, whether it's Cherie or Maxine, whether the podcast or acting, she that queen. PYT, you know what that mean. Saw you on TV and touch the screen, touch on you. I plead Lucy's got a crush on you. It'll mean the world to get a blush from you. Teaspoon to me, leave you sleep like Robitussin.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I love being here. Thanks.
Oh my God. I'm so just so that you guys know, we didn't do no pre-interview. I mean, I have spoken to him on the phone, but I'm laying my eyes on him for the first time, just like you guys.
It has been forever. It certainly has. Way too long.
Yes, way too long. How you doing, baby?
Great. Things are good. I mean, obviously other than the strike, but life is good. I've got healthy kid, happy wife, good families. So yeah, things are good. Ready to go back to work, but that's about it.
Absolutely. That's all that we can ask for. So can we start with that right now?
Sure.
I don't know if you know, but my brother's a cameraman. So he has been pretty much off work since May. Is that you too?
Yeah, that's pretty much my story. I have been doing lighting, and specifically for the past few years, I've been working with the Star Wars TV shows. Started with Obi-Wan Kenobi, moved over into Mandalorian, and then most recently we had Ahsoka that we just finished up with, which is great. First off, I want to say what a great crew all those guys are. Tom Howard's my boy. I'll give him a shout out. He's my boss, so I love all those guys. They're great. But we're supposed to be going back for the next season of The Mandalorian in October.
Right.
Obviously, that's not going to happen. And I mean, I think some of the things that people don't necessarily realize when they start talking about writers striking, and especially sometimes when they think about actors striking, they think about maybe somebody like Tom Cruise who's striking and he's got his millions of dollars and all those sorts of things, and he might be okay, and it might not seem like that is that relatable for somebody else who who could relate more to, say, like the UPS strike or something. But
right,
a lot of the bread and butter, the people who are just the workers who are trying to get this stuff done, they live those same types of lives. I heard some crazy statistics that they were saying, I think it was like a high majority. It was something like more than 60% of SAG members don't qualify for health insurance every year. And in order to qualify for health insurance, it's something like $24,000 or $26,000 a year.
It's $26,000 a year. They raised the bar. It used to be $13,000. And now it's 26. And with
but even just thinking, but just thinking about that dollar amount, $26,000 a year in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
They also just came out with an interesting statistic. And now this is an average over California, but obviously Los Angeles is one of the larger outliers of this whole statistic. But I think they were saying that in order to qualify for a 30-year mortgage in California, you have to make $208,000 a year.
That's so unfair. And most Californians can't do that. So they're trying to block you out.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And just think of that one statistic, the 26,000. They're not even making a tenth of what you're supposed to be able to make in order to, to possibly get just a chance at getting a house, any house.
Yeah.
So it's outrageous. It's totally unsustainable.
And
then there's, of course, there's all the other outlier things. It's not just the writers, of course. It's not just the actors. It's then all the support characters, the cameramen, the lighting, the grips, the makeup artists. And then that's just the people that are in the industry. And then you don't think about, what about the coffee shop that, all of us might go to on the way to work? Now they don't have all of the work, and on and on and on. It's a trickle down,
Right. It caters everybody.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow, the Greensman. I mean, it goes so deep now that you really got me thinking because sometimes when you're doing TV shows, people don't realize it's 180 people that are behind that camera making these 5 people on camera look really well.
Right.
And
Yeah, and the whole purpose is to make it makes it seamless and easy, and it doesn't seem like a big deal. But the reason it doesn't seem like a big deal is because everybody did their job and they did a good job at it.
right, because there's
Right.
amazing. So I want to start with you from the very beginning, okay? And I'm
Sure.
putting my glasses on so I can see you really good because I want to soak all you do this. That way, you know. Um, how old were you when you started acting?
I was 7. And I actually had the first breakout piece that I had was the introduction of the IBM personal computer. And up until that point, IBM basically only made those, huge, gigantic computers for companies and things like that.
Right.
And at the time, they had an ad program, and if you YouTube them, you won't find my piece. I don't think it's out there, but you can find they had a Charlie Chaplin lookalike, and he represented IBM during that time. And so when they decided to introduce the personal computer, they wanted to do a throwback to more Charlie Chaplin, so they cast me basically as Jackie Coogan to play in the Charlie Chaplin movie The Kid.
Yeah.
And so they hired me to do that, and we ended up doing like 15 different pieces, and they all aired during the 1980s Los Angeles Olympics. And,
Wow.
and it
Major.
ended up being yeah, here, and it ended up being during that time, and I'm not exactly sure who up there. It may have been your uncle who ended up actually seeing that piece, and they ended up calling my agent and finding out, and like, who was that? I want him to come in and audition for this role. But the funny part is I had a whole hair incident that was going on during that time. I had for the Jackie Coogan, I had to be a brunette for it. But for the Punky Brewster auditions, they knew me as a blonde, so they had my pictures. But I was going back and forth between doing the auditions and doing the commercial, and so I was constantly bleaching my hair blonde, dyeing it brown, bleaching it blonde again, dyeing it brown. Of course, there was also an incident where we didn't know any better. I jumped into the pool at one point, so it became green. Then we had to bleach it again.
Are you serious? And this was like
Oh
audition
yeah,
for
yeah.
Punky.
Yep, yep. And then at one point, we actually, I think we could not get the hairdresser to actually come to my place in time, and I ended up completely confusing the casting director there because I showed up as a brunette. You know.
Right, because all they know is that picture, and you have to come in looking
Yeah,
identically like that picture. That is
that's
how.
right. Yeah, I mean, when you go into the room, there's 20 other blondes in there. If there was the one brunette, you're like, oh, I think you're in the wrong place.
Oh my gosh, I never knew this story.
Yeah, yeah.
So how many times did you audition before they gave it to you?
I want to say somewhere in the ballpark of 4 to 5. I think there were 4 or 5 times I came in.
They put you
And
guys.
it was very typical, as we remember. The first one was much more of a cattle call. It was a massive room of people, and real quick you go in, you're in there for 30 seconds, and all right, see ya, and you have no idea. And then 2 days
Wow.
later, they're like, "Yeah, you were great. You're coming in for callbacks. All right, second callbacks, third callbacks, keep coming." So yeah.
Yes, I remember the day that they brought you and Amy in at the same time, and you were walking down the hallway, and they were bringing Soleil and I from the set to meet you guys,
Mm-hmm.
and we were so excited because we got friends.
Yeah.
We were like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it really is. I mean, that's an interesting thing, I think, too, that is an interesting dynamic when it comes to just child acting in general, is inevitably our separation from kind of like the rest of the world,
right,
right? Not really going to public schools, even though sometimes I know that there were opportunities. I know that, if we ended up having like a break, they would try and put me into public school. But as as everyone I'm sure can imagine, at that age, especially when we were in the heyday of the show, we weren't able to go anywhere. I remember being, I started when I was 7. I had a year of commercials, and then I landed Punky. So I was 8 when I actually landed the show. And I would say within that first year, my mom and I learned pretty quickly that like going to the mall was a big deal. Like maybe you don't go anymore. We stopped going. I remember at one point, actually, there was a weird thing to where I got separated from her. Just the two of us. My mom's, very small. So it didn't take much for a couple of bigger people to be like, oh, and wanting to just be near you and trying to hand you an autograph and not, trying to be physical with us. But she got
Right.
separated. And all of a sudden I'm standing there in the middle of a sea of people and I have no idea what's going on and getting pushed and jostled and everything. And we stopped going to public places for a little while after that.
It's crazy. Soleil and I had this conversation when we were doing press for the reboot. Somebody
Mhm.
said, "What was it like to find out you were famous?" And we both kind of looked at each other confused, very, very confused. And I was like, I don't think that we knew we were popular,
Right.
but famous? Like that was for Michael Jackson. How do you
Right.
feel about that?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think that's exactly the right vernacular for it. We weren't People knew who we were, but it wasn't to the same caliber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember us having a signing at Magic Mountain. Do you remember that? My mom has pictures of us.
Yes, yes, yes. I remember. I think it was, if I remember correctly, I think we did it was a Toys for Tots, I think. And if I remember correctly, I think we ended up getting, and it was one of my favorite things ever. Each one of us ended up getting our own Marine because the Marines were the one who were actually hosting it. And so each one of us, we got our own Marine, and they were the ones who escorted us around the whole park. And I remember it was one ride that I was so jacked to go on, and I made my Marine go on with me. It was the one where like you spin really fast and the bottom comes out or whatever. And I remember he was like, "All right, fine, I'll do it." He was such a trooper.
I love the
The
fact
stupid kids making me go on rides.
I love the fact that you remember because I don't remember that. I have like my memory is like very choppy. Like I'll remember moments, but I
Yeah.
don't remember a lot. Do you have a favorite like punky moment
Whoa.
or a show, maybe an episode?
Yeah, the Valentine episode has still always been my absolute favorite. I've loved that one. I thought that was so much fun. I thought that again, I mean, us making, we made history on that show. I
Yeah.
think if I remember correctly, that was the first time that they had ever put those prosthetics on kids.
Yes.
They did so much fun stuff with us, like that Valentine one. And then I remember the Rambo costume
Yes.
that Gene Duchette made for me. Oh man, it was fantastic. He made it, and I was so great. I remember him coming in. He goes, "There's only two of these in the world." He goes, "The first one I made for Johnny Carson, and the second one I made for you." I was like,
I
oh, "That's amazing."
love the fact that you remember Gene because
Yes. Oh, he was my favorite. He was great.
I just talked about him yesterday, like when I was doing another interview about something totally else. I was like, Gene Doucette, he was, we had the most amazing standout, I think, crew members. Um, what do you feel like your punky experience did for you as far as the industry? Because for me, I just put it out there all the time. If I would have worked on something else before I worked on punky, I don't know if I would have loved being in entertainment. But punky was the foundation which made me like be like, this is it. It don't get no
Oh
better.
yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And I think honestly, with a lot of that, I think that it was that experience, and specifically what you said about the crew members. I think that they made such a big impact. I mean, I had such personal relationships with them. My good and bad. My very first experience with like having to I didn't lose any grandparents or anything. My very first experience with having to deal with a family member, an older family member passing away, ended up being one of the second ADs, ended up going out on
Oh,
like dune buggies or something. I can't remember the exact
oh,
detail. Yes,
oh,
yes.
when the Doom Bug
That
passed away.
that crushed me. That I felt like a family member had died. That was my first experience with it, dealing with grief and learning what that even meant.
Yeah.
No, these were our family members. I remember, and I'm terrible with the names. I'm glad that you remember everybody's name, but it was also one of our first ADs. That I would go, and I was really good friends with his son, and I remember for years,
Oh my
even
God, this
after
is
the
oh
show
my God.
ended, we ended up, I would stay over at his house, and yeah.
So I'm so pissed because of course like his um
You had the mustache.
Yes.
Yep, yep.
It's not David, right? I want to say that because of my uncle.
Okay.
I know this
Yeah,
man. I love this man. The man's godson ended up being the first AD on the reboot.
that's incredible. That's fantastic.
They did everything they could to keep the original ties there. Oh
Yeah.
my God. His daughter's name is Anna. Now, why am I remembering his daughter's name? I'm gonna go in the room and be like, Mom, what?
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. It's not David Waiter.
It is David Waiter.
David
There, you
Waiter.
nailed it.
That
Nicely
was
done.
not,
Yes.
it was
Yeah.
David. I was like,
Yep.
that's my uncle's name. Is that why it's sticking out? David Waiter. I love so his godson was our first AD on the reboot. You know, we had our original sound guy.
I do remember you saying that. That's right. And that, I think that also is a testament to, we're talking about the impact that all the crew ended up having on us. I think it's a testament to the impact that the show must have had on the crew as well, that they're wanting to do this, because it's not like, the Punky Brewster reboot had some premium. I'm sure they paid just as much as the other job. So it's not, they're
Right.
going there because they want to be a part of it.
Actually, we paid a little less than some of the other shows. So I heard. But COVID, it was a whole thing. And I'm so sad we didn't come back for a second season because we were going to see you. If you would have come back, would you have come back?
I certainly would have. Yes. Yes.
Amazing.
I do have to say, in a lot of ways, I had, some of those experiences of being young and being popular and some of the mobbing that would happen. And I think that what really kind of stopped my desire for celebrity was that it was right after the show, and I was kind of in that in between period. My agent's telling me, all right, we're starting to groom you for features and things like that. That was supposed to be the overall plan, but of course, what ended up happening is I went to high school and I fell in love with it.
Really?
I loved being just a regular kid. I loved all of that. And that's when I actually had just made the point that once I started high school, I was like, I'm not going back into this because I don't want to have to make the decision that what if I get something and they're like, oh, well, you can't go to prom because you got a movie.
Oh, but wait a minute, Casey.
That kind of concept.
I don't want people to think that you just did Punky and that's it, because I was a fan. Punky ended. You went on and did Newhart. You did Up Place at the Table. You did Mr. Belvedere, which I was so excited because at this time Punky was over. So I watched you walk in with your headgear and I was screaming. I was like, yeah. You did the White story. You did 21 Jump Street, the Munsters, the Wonder Years, and I'm sure I'm missing things, but like, you continued to work for years.
Yeah.
In fact, you did Days of Our Lives, and I did Days of Our Lives.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I remember also doing it was Santa Barbara. Remember because that was right next door to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what? And I have to apologize. I've apologized to you off camera. Casey was the only boy. And we used to gang up against Casey sometimes. And I am the culprit because I was a total tomboy and I'm aggressive. And I'm still aggressive, Casey. I've always been aggressive. But I love you with every bit of my being as if you were one of my siblings. Like, Casey used to spend the night at my house. Like, we hung out. But I was not always so kind. And for that, Casey, I am so sorry.
No, there's no apology needed, and there was never, and that actually wasn't even that didn't play the factor into the decision in leaving the show. I remember at the time it ended up basically being the recommendation from my agent at that point, because what she was worried about was because I was now starting to go out on these auditions, and it wasn't just different roles, they were different types of roles. And so, because if you end up looking at, for instance, like Christmas on Division Street that I did with Fred Savage, and then I did a movie with David Faustino, and in each one of those they were now pulling me out of like that, what I had been, the Alan character of being kind of the dorky, nerdy kid. And they were starting to put me into like that tougher role. They were trying to, harden me up. And her concept is that she just wanted to break me out of that and was worried that you would almost And even though this happened before, she didn't want like what you would almost consider like the Urkel effect, you know, to where it's just, that's it. That's all you can ever be. You can't be anything other than that character. Every time I look at you, that's all I see, you know? And so that was kind of her push, was you don't want to get stuck with this, even though this is a success. You know, in her mind, she's like, we're playing chess, not checkers, was her kind of mentality. Let's leave one show that's even working, but let's try and get you into this other thing.
And that makes so much sense, because as you said it, I'm like, oh, Urkel. That's the first thing I thought of, is the Urkel effect. Mm-hmm. You know, people ask me, well, why did Casey leave the show? I was like 12, I think.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah.
Right. I remember your episode where your parents were moving or divorcing.
Yep, the divorce one.
And then you were gone. But I don't think at that moment Soleil, Amy, or I met, like, we knew that you weren't coming back next week. Maybe Amy did, because she was a little bit more adult than Soleil and I. But I don't think it embedded in Soleil and I's head that we wouldn't see you the next week.
Right, sure.
And you
you
were just kind of off. And I was like, well, who am I going to pick on now? I don't have anybody to chase. Nobody's gonna ride bikes with me.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, so many of the accidents. I remember us running down the hall way too fast, and I feel so bad for the young PA I know that was in charge of me, who was, Casey, stop running down the, you know, and I face plant into something, and you're all scraped up, and now I'm crying, and his boss comes out and he's like, what did you do? You know,
I didn't do anything. That's why I love Punky, though, because now when I watch children at work, it's children at work. And it's disheartening, because when we were at work, I didn't know we were working. We were children at play. Did you know that we were working?
No, I mean, no, I'm with you 100%. It was always just messing around. And I think a big part, I mean, I'll be honest with you, one of the other stories I always remember is your mom coming to bat for us when we, you know, it was that time that we got pulled off to the side, and it was the Rambo. It was that Rambo episode, you know, where I split my lip over the weekend. Do you remember all of this?
I don't remember.
Okay, so I think we had the Rambo costume on twice, if I'm not mistaken. So one of them was a Halloween episode. Not the super scary one we did, just a regular one. And which I've heard people talk about, that they were like, that was you remember the one where we did the 2-parter in the cave? They're like, that was the scariest thing I saw on television. What are you talking about? This is a kid's show? But this was a different one. And I remember in it, over the weekend, I had just been out, and being a kid, I had, you know, messing around with kids or whatever. I don't remember the particulars, but I ended up falling, and I had split my lip. So Monday I come in, and, you know, huge, gigantic, big, fat bottom lip.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so now, you know, I'm supposed to be saying my lines, and I sound like I, you know, got the sort of going on, you know. And it was after the first taping, the director ended up, he did something. He like diverted our teacher and pulled us kids into a room with just him.
Art Dillon. I remember.
Right. Yeah, I didn't want to say his name, but yeah, that guy.
I'll say
and
it.
Yeah, screw him. He screamed and yelled at us, just us kids, and treated us like we were adults.
Yes.
You better, blah, blah, blah. I don't remember the details, but I remember it was a big deal. And he walked out, and we were all kind of shell-shocked, looking at each other going, what just happened?
And I don't remember why he yelled. Is it because we were playing?
No, he was specifically yelling at me because I wasn't trying hard enough to enunciate my lines. I can't understand you. I thought you were a real actor. And it was those sorts of, yeah. And because my lip hurt and it was hard to talk, and, you know.
But let's keep it real now. We never saw Art Dillon again. My uncle directed the second show.
Your mom, I remember being there when your mom found out about it, or at least had come to question me. I think maybe somebody else, probably you, had talked to her, and then it was like literally next day we all went out to lunch, and she made sure it was just us. And, you know, she was like, no, I got this. I'm taking the kids out to lunch. And then she came in and she goes, Casey, you tell me exactly what that man said to you. You tell me exactly what happened. I'm going to take care of this. And just like you said, bye-bye.
He never directed another episode of Punky. I remember my uncle coming down and directing, like, I don't know if it was like the next couple episodes or something, but
Yeah.
I remember the talk that my uncle had with us too. He said, "No one will ever yell at you again. I promise."
Yeah.
And I remember, yeah, I'm probably my own tattletale, but
No, but I mean, that's what it had to. That's what had to be done. You know, I mean, that was obviously totally unprofessional. Not against the. If I'm not mistaken, I think there's probably a rule somewhere in there that you can't do that. I mean, the social
yeah.
worker had to be with us at all times. So the fact that he made sure she wasn't in there, he did that on purpose. You
Oh
know,
yeah, and our social worker was Ruth Ann.
that's right. Yeah.
Ruth
Oh, and she
Ann
didn't play around.
Yeah, Ruth Ann Cruder Brown one. Go ahead, none of that.
Soon as that would have started, she'd have been like, you get out of this room. We're out of here.
I called her Hitler, but she was
That's
black.
right.
She was a little itty bitty black lady that I called
Yep.
Hitler.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
right. But yeah, she didn't mess around. I remember that.
I remember. I love that you have those good memories. I do remember the incident. I don't remember the particulars, but I
Yeah.
remember little
I
tidbits.
just really remember it was, again, going back to that family. I felt
Yeah.
like mom stepped in and said, "You don't mess with my babies like that." And that's what happened. You know, you didn't have to look around for your actual parent.
Yeah.
I had tons of parents around who were all looking out for us. It was great. And
Yeah.
that's why I think, going back to what you're saying, that if we had any other experience on possibly any other show, I mean, I don't know, we're not on all of them, but most of these other shows that you talk about, yeah, it's work. It's children who are doing grown-up stuff,
Yeah.
and that's it. They're not children we're not a bunch of grown-ups who are trying to make a movie while kids are having a good time.
Right. And
Yeah,
I mean, I was having a good time.
we all did. We all had a great time. I remember going over to your uncle's place. What a fun joint. He had an arcade. I mean,
Yes.
that's what it was. That's what it felt like. It always felt like that. And you remember all like the rap parties that we would have, and we would share them with silver spoons. And that was
Yeah.
another great experience, being able to have all of them. I was able to speak with Corky Pigeon. I haven't in a long time, but after that, because for a while, we were kind of counterparts, because we were the blonde friend of the main
Yes.
character. And I can't tell you how many times everybody was like, "You on silver spoons?" I was like, "You almost got it right." It'd be one of those things. It was the two of us who were constantly.
I love it. And that's for you guys who are watching. That's another one of my uncle's shows. Amazing. So Casey, you go to high school,
Mhm.
right? After high school, then what happens?
Yeah. So went off to college, finished college, and was just still.
Congratulations.
Oh,
What
thank you very
college did you
much.
go to?
UCLA.
Hey! Yeah, I went to a lot of parties, but I sure didn't go to no classes.
um yeah, so but after that I was still somewhat kind of aimless, not really knowing where I wanted to kind of take my life. And that's when it was a friend of a friend who made the suggestion of, "Hey, I'm working on a movie. You're not doing anything right now. We're doing lighting stuff. Does that sound cool?" Yeah, I'll do that. I'm not doing anything. So I worked for 30 days on a student film for free, and it kind of took off from there.
Wow. And so you started doing grips first? Were you a grip?
I did, especially back in the non-union days. They're really interchangeable. Doing lighting and grip is basically, right hand, left hand sort of thing. So I would do either one. And then eventually, when I was able to go through the process of, you do your non-union, and you eventually get 30 union days. It takes a long time. It took me like 3 or 4 years in order to be able to do it. But once you're able to get all 30, then you're able to apply to the local, and I've been in ever since. Excuse me, I take that back. I had one little stint. I had decided that I was going to completely retire from the industry, and I moved to Indiana, and I got a job running a research lab at Purdue in Indiana. And that was a super rewarding, great, fun job. We were working on all kinds of cutting edge technology. It was in the biomedical engineering department, so we were working on ocular implants, and we had a sensor that they were putting into the heart as one of the jobs. They've also have a brain interface chip that they were inserting into the brain so that a robotic arm that was made somewhere else could be controlled with just thought. And it was incredible. All the stuff that they were doing was so neat.
That's like a real corporate job.
Yeah, it really was. That was a very interesting, especially working in academia. That was a very interesting, field change for sure. But it was, like I said, really rewarding, really interesting, a lot of fun. Made my brain hurt every day. It was great.
I mean, I'm amazed because like I've never worked corporate America per se, and I can't even imagine what that transition was like.
Yeah, it was weird. It definitely was weird. It was because one of the things that I had always loved about the industry in general, no matter what position you're in, assuming that you're working on production, is that you're going someplace different all the time. There's a different location, and even if you're working on a sitcom like ours, even though basically every day you were still going to the same stages, after that job was done, you were going to go on to a new job. So at least it was then a whole new crew and whole new stages. And, you were never really, and if you were unhappy with it, I don't really like those guys. That's right. You only have to do them. You only have to see them for about 3 more weeks and then another crew you can go work with and see if you like those guys, that kind of thing.
It's not going to last
so,
long. So
that's right. And that part I loved. So it was weird going into the office and having an office that I went into and an office mate for like many years in a row. And that was it was neat and weird all at the same time, I like the security, but I like the change. I like going out and being all different places and going to a new location and new things. That part was neat. Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask. I was going to say, I know you had to get bored, like going to an office every day, because that's very different from what we do.
Yeah. Eating at the same place,
So
that kind of thing.
Coming back to California and
yep.
going back into lighting, like that's real skill too. Because you could blow the whole stage up, Casey.
Yeah. Yeah. And it especially in the beginning, I really enjoyed it because a lot of what I liked about it was there's plenty of technical, you have to learn about the electricity and being safe and all those other things. There's the artistry of it. You're learning your 3-point lighting of where the fill is and your backlights. And because, in order to be a better juicer, this is what they called us, to be a better juicer, you would want to anticipate, the gaffer's coming in and we're flipping everything around, right? We're going to do the turnaround. We did your close-up and now we need to do the other close-up on the other side. And so remembering, well, where was the light? Was it off of there? Where's the sun? Was the sun off of this side? Now you got to match it, make sure it's on the other side and still matching it. And you have to make sure that the lights make sense. If there's a lamp next to you, well, then you can have that warm light coming and then the windows open. And so you can have daylight coming from there and color mixing and matching. And if you can anticipate what the boss wants, well, then he's going to be, I like that guy. We're going to bring him back. He was already starting to move the light in the rough area of where I wanted it. He's starting to anticipate me. I like that guy, And so then you start paying attention and wanting to do those sorts of things.
I love the fact that you're talking about lighting and like where the sun would be, because I watch some of these low budget independent films that they're doing right now. And I'm like, did you guys not have not one light? Like you're talking about the 3-point lighting system. Like, how do you feel when you watch it? People want to get the actors, right? They want to get their production design, but something happens to lighting and sound. Like they forgot that was important.
Yeah, and it's monumentally important, because these are moving pictures that you see, and you are also talkies, so you hear them. So how in the world can that fall to the wayside? Yeah.
We got a whole bunch of people buying $1,500 cameras, not realizing that the lenses are more important than the camera. Mm-hmm. What is your advice that you can give somebody who's doing a low budget independent film, maybe doesn't have a lot of money to buy like a huge, lighting kit or whatever? What would you tell them when they go to do these movies? Because honey, they need help. And I'm tired of watching this stuff.
And honestly, it really comes down to if you haven't read a book, do some of the homework. Don't try and skip the steps. Mm-hmm. Don't feel like that you watch Scarface a couple of times and then you watched a YouTube video for 8 minutes and now you're like, oh, I'm a cinematographer basically. Mm-mm. No, these guys, recognize the fact that there is an innate, if you have an eye, you may have an eye or you may not have an eye. And that is, there are plenty of guys that I've worked out with out there who are amazing. I've had gaffers who will go out and they can walk through the room, and we'll have 12, 15 lights all in different areas, going through a window, background stuff, whatever. And they'll go in and be able to say, drop a double and, diffuse that, make that less, put something soft in front of that, and give you all the instructions as they go through by quite literally just looking at it, and sometimes using their color meter, but usually just by the eye, and then leave, right? They give us all the instructions and they go to craft service and have a donut. And then we go do all of our work. And every once in a while we'll mess up. We'll skip one. We won't see one. Or even the guys, I've heard it before, and we're like, there's no way that he knows what, and he'll do the wrong thing on an accident. I'm not going to give him a double. I'm going to give him a single. We'll see if he sure is good. No, add another single to that one. And he'll think it was his mistake. But in fact, no, he knew exactly what he wanted in there. And you're like, some bitch, I can't believe it. He got me.
I love that. It took me until I was older, of course, to one day look up and see you guys like in the rafters and be like, damn, there's a lot of shit up there. Yep. I never really paid attention until, I was older. And I was like, that's a lot. How long does it take you guys to get up there, like when you're doing like a Star Wars, right? Before you start, like what is it like? Is it like a week? Do you have a week delay?
Really? So when you're it really depends, obviously. So if you have a full clean stage, and it'll all go in stages. And to be honest with you, everything is different now. I mean, the technology that we are now having to try and catch up with, because it used to be, I remember when I first got in, now we're coming up on 20 years when I first got into the local. I remember that there was a new technology that had just come out, and it was relatively, and it was HMIs that were coming out, and they had replaced, and they are daylight technology, right? In order to get that blue light to represent, rather than the orange light that might be more like candlelight or your home light. But before, what they would use is what were called like carbon arcs. There were these huge, gigantic lamps, and they would puff out smoke, and you had to have a guy in there, and he was having to like look through this little glass and tweak on these arc rods that would have to stay just a certain part, because that's where the spark is, and that's the actual light. But it's like a little mini explosion that's going on in there that you have to just perfectly have going the whole time. And so we moved into this new technology, and that was the new thing. But it was like, just like with technology, it's the acceleration of it. Instead of it being every 10 years, we have this new breakthrough. It feels like every 3 years. And now we have LEDs, and now we're incorporating things like movie buffs of the Star Wars stuff, because I don't know if it's necessarily the first place that they were using it, but our show was kind of the first that was using it consistently all the time, which is called the volume. And what that is now is it's one of the ways that they're replacing green screen, and it is video walls.
Wow.
And now can you imagine, I'm sure all the times that you've had to be in front of a green screen and something crazy is going on behind you. You have characters, or you have explosions, or you have all these things that the director is just yelling at you going, oh, there's a meteor coming over your left shoulder, pretend, Now there it is. There's the actual meteor, and it's as good a quality as you're going to see in the finished product. And so you don't have to like pretend to react to something. It's right there. And you have all of those. And then the other things that they're able to do too. They had one where the actor was coming in and had a flashlight, right? And was looking through, and they have the ability, they have little sensors or something on the end of the flashlight, to where the flashlight was interactive in the screen. And so you could see the beam of light. You could see where it was making shadows. It's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. It's crazy. Yeah. So.
Wow.
And so we have all of those things too. And for me, all that stuff's been a lot of fun. And now we're getting into like networking and being able to carry all of that information so that the special effects guys and the DP and the gaffer and the rigging gaffer, all those guys are all able to talk to each other and, push buttons, and they all, react to what you're doing, and it's all in real time. So like if you want a blaster fire, you can just push a button and this blaster fire thing comes out and it's real, and you get the effect of the red glow on you that you would see as if it was really there. And
Yeah.
no, it's
Amazing.
yeah, it's really neat. It's really neat, the stuff that they're doing. It's really fun.
You guys need to IMDb this guy because he has so many credits. I can't even name them, but you would be amazed at all your favorite things that he has done lighting on. Because I was sitting there and I was like, what? 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 I am so proud. Can we get, because I know my time is like dwindling down, but
Yeah,
people really want to know you. Is it okay if we get a little personal or no?
sure. Yeah, let's hit it.
You're married.
I am, yes. I'm married to my wonderful wife, Michelle. And I have a daughter named Audrey.
Oh,
And we were actually, she is in high school. She's a sophomore. And she was actually just on the phone. I'm very proud of her. She was just on the phone with a gaffer friend of mine, his wife, Kelly. She is the makeup artist for John Krasinski. So,
oh,
and she has great, wonderful stories. I haven't had a chance to meet him, but he sounds like an incredible man. He sounds like a great boss. He treats her so well. They go and do, so like he's doing like Jack Ryan, right? And so I'm constantly hearing her about I'm going to Istanbul and I'm going to Paris and I'm going to all these great, cool, exotic places, on their dime, and they're
amazing.
taking me, yeah. And I think that they ended up having a private night at the Louvre. I was like, oh, right. Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to go up to the Mona Lisa and I get to be there by myself with her, that kind of thing. And so I was telling her, these are going to be possibly some of the experiences that not just you have a cool job, right? Sorry, that's what I was getting into. Is she just got off the phone with her because now that's what she's decided that she wants to do. That she wants to be a makeup artist. Yeah.
Amazing. Tell her I can't wait to sit in her chair. She's got an auntie.
Yes.
She's got makeup.
I mean, she's so great. I mean, she was so into all of those things. Like her immediately, like when Halloween comes around, she's like, I'm going to be Freddy Krueger this year. And she's got these great, like scars and things, that stuff that she just found around the house. She wasn't even using real like prosthetics or whatever. She was using things like rub on glue that you would then apply. And if you're creative enough and you push it in the right areas, it all like, and that's immediately, when she
Amazing.
showed me all that, I was like, well, I guess we need to go out and get you some proper kits here.
Right. And what a
Yep.
better dad to have to foster that. I am
Yeah, I'm hoping. Yeah, we're trying to help. I'll be honest with you. I think it was one of the bigger actors, and I couldn't agree with him more when he talks about nepotism. No, there's no problem with nepotism in that specific thing, because how many plumbers have their sons become the plumber who takes over the job? Nepotism is
absolutely.
everywhere. Just because it's an actor and everybody wishes, well, I wish I was I bet you do wish that you were the son of Harrison Ford and you could become an actor. Me too, but whatever. I'm gonna help
Absolutely.
my kid out as much as I can too. Yeah,
As much as you can. Sometimes it's a double-edged sword. If my uncle fired somebody, they hate me for life, but it has nothing to do with me.
that's right. Right.
I'm like, he fired you, bro.
Right.
First job you don't get, whatever, it happens.
Yep. And of course, we've also made it clear too that we'll only take you so far. I won't,
Absolutely.
I won't pull not to get political here, but I won't pull a Trump. I won't pull a daddy Trump to where when Trump fails constantly, you're going to have somebody else just constantly giving him money and be like, here's another $1,000,000. Here's another $1,000,000. Bankruptcy, don't worry about it. Here's another $1,000,000.
Right. We're not going to save you, but we will open that door. And Auntie
Yeah, yeah,
progresses now. So Auntie will open that door too, baby. Odds I'm ready
that's
to
right.
see what you do. I
That's
am
great. That's right.
so is she still playing soccer?
Nope, soccer isn't happening anymore. She is mostly dance. She's been doing, that was her physical activity that she was doing mostly. And then yeah, she's really into theater. She's really enjoyed acting. And there was definitely I think a desire and a push for that early on. But I think we've also been very pragmatic about it, in that she recognizes the fact the whole time all I ever said was, I will always support you as an actor if that's really what you want to do. But you should know that no matter how talented you are and no matter how badly you want it, the numbers unfortunately say you will not be successful.
Yeah.
And you just have to be realistic about it. that's why, again, SAG comes out, and I think they have an unemployment rate of 90 something percent. If they really look through and you look at how many people in SAG actually work every day, it's not very many. Most of them, that's the joke. You're an actor? Oh, right. So you're a waiter, right?
So
that was
my interview yesterday. The first thing the guy says to me is, "Oh my God, are you affected by this SAG strike?" I said, "No, it's really a crew issue." I said, because I ain't had a job in 3 years, so I was unemployed anyway. It didn't make me no difference. I said I would like my residuals to be better, but
right. Yeah, we need to figure out the streaming thing.
Right, we need to figure out the streaming.
Right.
We need to figure out these ultra low budget agreements that they agreed to a long time ago that are shit. But besides from that, it really ain't affecting me, but it's affecting people like you and my brother more than I think it's most actors. And I think that sucks.
Right. And I think sometimes that's the untold story in that little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So was it okay? Your daughter played soccer with my niece? Or
that's right.
Okay. I was like, that's how small the world is, you guys. My niece, I don't think she plays anymore either. I think she's off doing other things. She's an artist and she's a model, so she's off doing that. But my niece and Casey's daughter were playing soccer together. And Casey ended up having a conversation with my little brother.
Isn't that crazy? Such a small little world. It really, really is.
It is. That's the Valley, though.
Yeah, that's also really it too. Sometimes I'm surprised I don't run into more people.
For real, like I can't believe I never. How long have you been in the Valley?
Let's see. It's been off and on, honestly, since the whole time I've been in Los Angeles. I've had a few years that I would live on the West Side, but you bounce back and forth depending on if you get onto a show for a long enough, because especially now, especially with gas prices, I'll be honest with you, when someone offers me a job, I don't usually ask what the job, that I do eventually, but the first question isn't what is it or even what the rate is. It's where is it?
Is it?
Yeah. What's my commute? Yeah. Because that is the most important thing now at this point, because, traffic just keeps getting worse and worse. And if you live on the West Side and you have a job at Warner Brothers, I don't know if it's worth it. I'm going to wait and hopefully I'll get a job at Sony, or I'll get a job at Fox, or I'll get a job over at, Raleigh, Manhattan or something like that.
Absolutely.
Which I've been lucky. All the Star Wars stuff has been Raleigh, Manhattan. So I've had a very short commute recently. So
that's awesome. And I left California. And one of the reasons why I left is because I had a baby. And after I had her, I went on an audition and I asked my mom, "Hey, can you watch my baby?" I think it was like 6 weeks. Like, it was really early. And I left my mom's house and I went straight to Warner Brothers, which, is a straight shot from my mom's crib. Went right back, and I was gone for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. 3 hours for something that took 5 minutes.
Right.
It just wasn't worth it to me.
Yeah. And all that frustration and all that craziness. And I tell you, traffic has turned into one of the things. It drives me crazy. I'm a mess by the time I'm done with it. Every time I feel like I've got the story of, what this guy did to me on the way here, that sort of thing.
It's like a war zone. You
it really
drive
is, yeah.
It takes it. I don't care where you work or where you live. You're not getting there in under an hour. You're not getting home in under an hour. So it's 2 hours of your life completely gone, off top, no matter where you live, no matter where you're going. And it might be more.
Right.
But an hour is a good day.
And I know what I go through. I think about, like, they were talking about this recently, that all of the labor movements, it's not just writers and SAG that are striking. Like I mentioned, UPS just had that monumental historic contract negotiation, which great for them. I think that's awesome. And in the end, good for UPS, the company. They recognized, they said, you know what, we can give all of our drivers a respectable wage, enough money that they can do this job and possibly buy a house. What a crazy idea. This is a good job. You can stay here. You could buy a house. You could raise your family, and UPS will still make plenty of money. And that's all this stuff is. It's just sharing. Yeah. It's that, Bob Iger doesn't want to share. And of the ilk, they just don't want to share right now. They're making tons of money, but they want every single penny.
Give
Yeah.
people what they deserve and give people enough where they can live.
Because they talk about that too. Like, again, going back to any of these careers, like if you make it so terrible for writers, just as an example, it happens to the actors and everybody else, but if you make it so terrible for them that they can't buy a house, that they can't make a living, that they can't really be successful, how long is it going to be until we don't have any more writers? Why would you become a writer? Why would you come out of school and be like, well, that career sucks. I'd love to do it, but it's terrible. I can't do it. You know what? I'll go to New York and I'll become a hedge fund manager or whatever equivalent it might end up being. I'll go do some other job and take my creativity and my experiences and expertise somewhere else. And then unfortunately, at that point, we'll be stuck with AI being the only thing that can write anything.
Right. And how entertaining will that be? Because I've had AI write some things for me, boy, and it sure is wordy.
Sure. Well, it's the one thing that it can't do is something new. It just can't. All it can do is gather all of the old information and then be creative with that and change it up. And that's why they talk about, the most of the things that the AI is coming out with is basically just reboots, redos, sequels. You're not going to have Driving Miss Daisy. It's not going to happen. It can't.
No, that's horrible.
Yeah.
Casey, my time with you is up, and I love you dearly.
What? It's only been 15 minutes. What are you talking about?
Amazing. My boyfriend is here, y'all. Sorry, Michelle.
That's right. I told her, I said, girl, we had Jungle Fever before Jungle Fever came out. You know what I'm saying?
I love the fact that you said that. Okay, so this PR person said to me and Soleil, and we were so confused. They said, how did you feel about being the first interracial friendship on TV? Soleil looked at me, but I know the look was, holy shit, don't say anything. she knew I was going to turn around and be like, what the fuck is that supposed supposed to be? But she gave me this look where she was like, and I was like, I don't think we thought about that.
Right, of course not.
No. So did you know? Did you even know that I was Black?
No, it wasn't. No, there was no difference between any of us. No, the difference was you were a girl. That was the only difference,
Yeah, I was a girl. Yeah. I was just wondering because Soleil and I were totally, I don't know if you know my whole story, but I didn't realize that my uncle was white. And I was 13 years old and he took me to school one day and then he picked me up. Well, when he took me to school, there was a girl that was there when he dropped me off and I kissed him and jumped out the car and did what kids do, right? So she goes, who is that brings you to school sometimes and picks you up? And I said, oh, it's my uncle. And she said, that can't be your uncle. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, he's white. And I said, no, he's not. First of all, I didn't know I was Black. So I didn't know what being white was, right? So she comes back later, at lunch, and it started being this antagonistic thing, Mm-hmm. And she was like, how is that your uncle and he's white and you're Black? And I was like, what do you mean? He's my uncle because he's my uncle. The attitude that I had, right? So I go, Uncle David picks me up, takes me to McDonald's, takes me home. I go in my room. When my mom comes home, he's like, hey, I think she started her period or something. You need to go check on her. She's acting funny. But I was acting funny because I kept looking at it. And then I kept going in my room and looking at myself because I still didn't understand what was going on. Right. So when my mom came to the room, she was like, hey, are you okay? Uncle David said you're acting funny. I looked at my mom. I said, why didn't you tell me he was white? And she looked at me and she goes, I didn't know I was supposed to. And then she said, does it matter? And I said, what does that mean? And she bust out laughing. Her. She said, come here, David, with her mouth. And he walked in and then they had a conversation with me. But I was 13 years old.
Yeah.
Before I even, and I'm like, I think it's amazing that we were groundbreaking. I never thought about it at the time of being groundbreaking. Did you ever have those thoughts?
Oh no, I was definitely clueless to the importance of all of that. No, I think at the time the things that I remember really having the big impact were more of like the content that the subject matter that we were hitting. I just remember hearing the story, and still almost, I remember it, and it gives me the emotions again of hearing of the kid. We ended up getting a letter or something. I may mess up the details of the kid who had suffocated in a fridge, like right before we aired that show, or right after we finished making it, or something. It was something along those lines. And it just, there was that moment of being like, I'm so glad we did this. Let's get this out there so that people can see it. And hopefully that won't happen. And the tragedy of, I wish it had been a day earlier or whatever, that we could have stopped that one or something. I remember it was more along those lines. It wasn't so in the social thing. So I'll be honest with you. Yeah. I think at that point, really racism wasn't even on my radar. I don't think it really existed to me. I didn't know it was a thing at that point, just being ignorant in a blissful sort of way. Yeah.
I was ignorant too, because I was right along with you. I had no clue. But a really cool fact. I'm not sure. I can't claim that it was all Punky's doing, but the story of the kid who suffocated in the refrigerator is the way Ice Cube got his name.
Get out!
Yeah.
What? We have 1 degree of separation from Cube.
Yes.
I love it.
I think the clip where he talks about it.
Yeah.
I was like, go, okay, Cube. And I got a little admittance from Dr. Dre. He said, I can't believe he told that story. He said, we all watch Punky Brewster. We just don't talk about it.
That's fantastic. Yes, yes, yes. Well, Mr. Dr. Dre, I listen to you every day, so I'm with you too.
I love you so much. This has been so much fun. Guess who's coming on with me next?
Ooh.
TK Carter.
Get out. Oh, TK's great. I miss that guy so much. He was so much fun. He was definitely the light that came on. Remember that we did that radio show not too long ago. I think it was last year or so. We got the group together, and TK was on it. Yeah, it was great. It was great seeing him. He's such a character. He's so funny. So funny. You're gonna have I bet you'll have a great show with him.
I'm gonna try to see if I can get him to do the signing with us too.
Okay, yeah.
The virtual autograph sign, because I think it'll be great. I'm gonna try to get Soleil. Soleil is like, I don't know where she is. Sometimes she's in India. Sometimes she went to Ukraine. Like, she's saving the world.
Did she?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. I don't know if I'd be hanging out there right now. That's good for her. Wow.
She's fierce. She goes to Haiti. She goes to Africa. Even when there was like a tornado in Tennessee, my baby shows up. Like, she is
I love that. Giving back, and that's great. I mean, I think that's a lot of the things that that's missing. I think there's a lot of that's missing, and especially when, it's not that she's out there, you're not seeing it necessarily broadcast on whatever, TV show or whatever, and that's not what she's doing it for. So I appreciate it.
The core organization, her and Sean Penn, are moving mountains to really help people.
Fantastic. That's great. Yeah. I'd love to hear that.
Love it.
Well, yeah. And for whatever it's worth, if anything is ever thrown out, if you guys ever have anything going on and you want me involved or whatever, especially right now, I'm not doing anything. But even if I was, I would love to make time for you guys.
Anytime somebody calls me about anything that has to do with Punky, I'm finding you.
Great. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for being receptive. I love you so much. And I hope that I can hug you soon.
What up, Cherie? Heard across the world. Welcome to Cherie's world. Heard across the world. Welcome to Cherie's world. Representing for every girl. Welcome to Cherie's world. Representing for every girl. Welcome to Cherie's world.